This is a quick tutorial on the Google Drive, so we're going to open the Google Drive app. If for some reason you don't have it, you're going to want to go to the App Store and get it now. The first thing you'll see is the way that my Google Drive looks like a list. In the top right corner, you can change the way that looks, or yours might not look like a list. It might look like blocks like this, and then your icon will look like these three lines, and then you can toggle back and forth between the two different views. On the left side, you'll see another list, and this is the list of all of your files. You'll see that I'm logged into my BGHS Cloud account. If for some reason that's wrong, you can click on the little cog and fix it. And then I've got all these files here. Obviously, I see my drive, and then I see incoming. This is the little shared with me icon. You'll see it looks like a bunch of people. So these are the things that other people have shared with me. So technically, this is incoming. It's not in my drive yet. I have to add it to my drive in order for it to show up in my drive. So we'll get back to incoming. If you can't find something, you can always go to recent. If you're looking to favorite something or star something, so you can always get back to it, you can go to starred. On the device means that you physically downloaded it onto the iPad, and then you could be viewing it offline, meaning you don't need the internet. Notice that nothing in my drive is on the device, so one, it's not taking up space on my device, but also I have to have internet. Uploads come from things that I pulled like from an email. This PDF was in an email, and then I put it on my drive. So it was uploaded into my drive. The next thing we're going to look at is sharing a folder with students, which you're going to want to be able to do in order to hand out material to your students. So the first thing you need to do is click this little plus sign to create a new folder. Notice you can create new documents and spreadsheets as well, but we're going to create a new folder. Once you create that new folder, you can name it anything that you're going to share. I would strongly suggest labeling it just what it will be, handouts. If you've got more than one class, you're going to want to label it English 1 handouts or Scholars Geometry handouts, because if all the teachers are sharing folders with their students, students are going to accumulate different folders for their 6 classes of handouts. And then once you've named that folder properly, you're going to click Create. Once you've created this handout folder, it is free for you to add freely any documents you want your students to have. If you click on it now, it will be empty, and you can be adding those documents from your iPad. You can add them from your computer at school. You can even add them from your computer at home. Anywhere you can get to the Google Drive, you can add files to this English handouts folder. You need to share it with your students by clicking on this little eye on the right-hand side, and that will bring up a menu to control this specific folder and only this folder. So you'll see it says English 1 handouts at the top. That's so you know that's the sharing settings for this folder. So you can share it in a number of different ways. One way to share it is by clicking on this little icon with the plus sign and the person. It says share, and you can share with different individual email addresses of your students. Now, this is the most tedious part because it does ask for individual student email addresses. No matter what email address, please make sure that this check mark is next to can view, not can edit. You do not want to give your kids the ability to edit this folder, because then they could delete handouts after they got them and other students wouldn't get them. That's one way to share, is by typing in all of their individual emails. Down here you'll see that right now sharing's off because I haven't shared it with anybody. The folder is not been shared up here. You can get to that same sharing setting by clicking on the plus sign down here and adding students' email addresses. Another option that I did last year was I just passed the iPad around the room, and I had students enter their own email addresses up at this top box, and one at a time, and clicking on the checkmark box. So this plus sign and this share plus sign are the same screen. You're still sharing with individual students. As long as you're the owner, you can still change all those settings. So you'll see there that I'm the owner of the folder. A third way to share is to click Get the Link. So if you click on Get the Link here on your iPad, you'll see that's a third way to share with your students in more mass forms than just adding people one at a time here. But you would still need to know their email addresses regardless, because what you're going to do is click on Get the Link, and then it will copy that link to your clipboard. If you look down at the bottom, it says Copy to Clipboard, and now you can paste that link in an email and send that email to all your students, let's say through Edline. Now that means that they have to be checking their email on Edline, which is another story in and of itself. So getting the link, while it sounds easier to mass send it out, isn't always the easiest way to share this folder, English 1 handouts, with all of your students in English 1. So just as you have shared this English 1 handouts with your students, you're going to then ask your students to create a folder and share it with you. Because they'll be sharing folders that they've created, you need to have a place to gather all those folders in. So notice I've created another folder by clicking on this plus sign, and I've called it English Student Shared Folders. And within that folder, I've created 5 additional folders, one for each period. And obviously, you can name them more specific what each period is. But you need to be prepared to collect all the files that the students will be sharing with you. The third step is now, of course, having your students create these folders. And for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to create one as though we are the student. So if we click on the plus sign and we create a new folder as though we're the student, they're going to want to label these folders by their last name. It is very important that the very first thing in their folder is their last name. Sometimes you can do last name, first name. Last year I think I did last name, first initial, but you need it to be by their last name so that you can alphabetize the 150 plus folders that you're going to get. There can be a space in between it. There doesn't have to be a continuous folder name. Well, after their last name, first name, that's when you want to label it their hand in folder. So you shared with them a hand out folder, and now they're going to create a hand in folder. Again, if you make it specific to the class, like English 1 hand ins, because if they're going to have a bunch of folders for every class. And now, just like you shared a folder with them, they're going to share this folder with you. So by clicking on the little eye next to it, they'll open up their sharing settings. They're the owner, so they have to do this, just like you were the owner of the other folder. So just like you had to click on share and share with all the students, they're going to click on share and share it with you. This is much easier for them because they're only sharing it with one person, the teacher, whereas you had to share it with 150 email addresses for your students. So they're going to type in your Google Drive account, and remember that that is the bghscloud.org account. Many students will share with your bishopgorman.org and that won't work. So they have to share with your bghscloud.org account. Once they've typed in your email address, they need to click Can Edit. So remember before, you only want them to be able to view, but you as the teacher want to be able to edit their folder and their materials. So they need to click Can Edit before they share it with you. So they've shared with your cloud, you can edit it, and then they click the little check mark. If for some reason they don't do this right the first time, you can always go back and edit these sharing settings at any point if you realize you don't have the ability to edit after they've shared the folder with you. The final rather tedious part is retrieving all the shared folders. So if you recall on this menu on the left, you had the incoming folders or the shared with me materials. So this is where the folders that your students share with you will appear. So I have to scroll down to find one, but if you'll notice, I still had the students label it by their last name because I don't know who B Football Man is. So I need to know the student's last name, first initial in this case. And notice that it's not in my drive, it was in this incoming shared with me section. So it needs to be added to your drive. So that's the final step, is going through and finding all the folders that the students have shared with you and clicking on this little icon to add it to your drive. So once you've done that, you will no longer have to go to this incoming tab. It will just all appear in your drive. And then you will have to go through the task of organizing them all so that this student folder, which I just named last name, first initial, hand in folder, I'll have to move to the proper period, whatever period that student's in. So if I go back to the settings on the right, I can move that folder to any other period that I've already set up that the student is in. And you'll see it was moved to period 1. On a final note, I know this can be a little overwhelming because there's a lot to set up and a lot to get your students to do, but it will save you so much time on handing in and handing out things in that workflow. Please email me if you have any questions. You can rewatch the video. We can set up a time for you and I to set this up together so you don't have to do it alone.